So today I'm speaking to the wonderful Victoria Ekanoye.
Yes, Ekanoye.
Ekanoye, make sure I said that right. I had to give her a little look there just to make sure I got that right. She's an actress, best known for playing Angie in Coronation Street. You had quite a dramatic storyline, I remember.
Yes, yeah. She had postnatal depression.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. And her work in The Royals, Almost Never, and Doctors.
Yes.
And she's also an amazing singer that's not often talked about.
Thank you.
And she's a patron for Prevent Breast Cancer, a charity all about funding research to prevent breast cancer in future generations. And today we're going to be talking to Victoria about your own breast cancer journey.
Mm-hmm.
So, Victoria, how are you today?
I'm actually really good.
Yeah?
I'm tired. I think that I was saying before, I think that being tired is just kind of the prerequisite to all of this. You're just tired all the time, and then you get good days where you peak and you can feel like a superhero again.
This is it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what happened? How did you discover your breast cancer?
My son Theo was 6 months old. I was breastfeeding. And I know that, a lot of women struggle to breastfeed, so I feel like I was very lucky and it saved me because I used to produce so much milk.
Wow.
The lump it was pushed to the surface.
Wow.
And I could feel it.
Wow.
Like really, it was like a frozen pea or frozen chickpea.
Wow.
And
Did it hurt? Was it hurting?
No.
So it was just, you just saw the lump and felt it?
Yeah. And it was really alarming. And I think, if I'm completely honest, because I'm the 5th person in my family to develop breast cancer now.
Who are the 5 in your family?
My mum,
okay.
her sister.
Is she recovered?
Yes.
Okay.
Alive and kicking.
Fantastic.
Candy is a world on her own. She's just amazing.
Oh, brilliant.
But yeah, my mum and her sister and their auntie and their cousin. So, I mean, it's been a lot.
So did you talk about breast cancer in your family?
Yes, because my mum is very open and literally has been my rock, and in the sense of being a mum.
So she's not one of those West Indian mothers who just
no.
goes to the hospital.
No, I know, exactly.
Has an operation or has a baby and comes with the whole baby and doesn't tell you anything. So she actually was very open and spoken about it.
She was eventually. Right. So the thing with my mum, and I think I got that from her, is that she didn't tell anybody until she was going in for the surgery.
Right.
But once that point came, then she was very open about it.
Okay.
She didn't tell people initially because she didn't want to worry anybody, and I was the same.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell my partner at the time because his mum had just been diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
Wow.
And I just didn't want to worry him.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay.
She's amazing
because
too.
ovarian cancer is one of those silent killers. So thank goodness she's okay.
And it was the BRCA2,
oh, wow.
which is in her family, which sadly took her sister.
Wow.
Literally the year before. So it's been quite heavy for the whole family for the last 2 years. And
so I know how long did you keep it secret from your partner?
It would have been just under 2 months, because when I first found the lump, it was literally...
So who did you confide in? Did you confide
initially in? Nobody.
Okay.
Initially nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just didn't want to worry anyone, and I thought, you know what, I could go and get an ultrasound and it could turn out to be nothing, and then no one needed worry for any reason. So I went and had it done, and in hindsight I guess it wouldn't have made a difference, because as soon as they said, no, we think it's absolutely fine, don't worry about it, I was like, how can I not worry about this? And my baby's in my arms, and I know it sounds, I don't know, it just made no sense to be even having to contemplate life and death at the same time. Like, I've got my baby and I'm seeing this lump, and I'm like,
Did you think you were going to die?
It crossed my mind a few times, especially given the family history. And I know my mum had survived and my auntie had survived, but I have sickle cell too.
Wow. And
they don't, and I understand how.
So sickle cell, for people listening, is a blood disorder where instead of blood being
it's like circular and flat, like
it's
yours.
A sickle shape.
Yeah, like a crescent moon kind of thing. And two things really. It doesn't flow very well in the veins, which can cause blood clots, which leads to multiple organ failure or amputations or stroke. But also when you do bleed, it can be quite extensive bleeding because it can't clot properly on the outside of the body. And so when actually, just to kind of jump forward, when I did have my surgery, I had to have a full body blood exchange before the surgery so that I'd make it through the surgery. So I knew the complications of sickle cell. I didn't know that was going to happen, but I knew that.
But also,
was
did
scary.
the doctors, because you live in France, they will not have a clue about sickle cell. I mean, it's such a dangerous thing because sickle cell can be crippling. It can be in crippling pain. That's a scary thought too.
I mean, I thankfully now found an amazing haematologist, and she's just blowing my mind at how attentive she's been and how brilliant she is. But she was a hard find. We've been there a while.
Imagine.
And my doctor in Manchester has reached out to different doctors in Nice, where we are, to try to find somebody. It's a very underrepresented condition. People don't really know a lot about it, and so it was a big factor for me when it came to moving to another country. But I have my biannual checks with my team in Manchester, and then anything that happens in France, usually I can manage at home. Right. But when it came to me finding the lump,
so who told you were clear? Who told you it's nothing to worry about?
When I went for the first ultrasound, I went for a private ultrasound, and they said I was fine.
Was that in France or in the UK?
In France.
Okay.
And then I that was like 8-9 days later, booked myself in for another one because.
So why did you not get the news that you're fine and just take that and run and be like, yep, I'm good, I feel fine? What made you book yourself another appointment with somebody else?
I think it's a mixture of things. I'm a patron of Prevent Breast Cancer, as you said, and there's so much breast cancer in my family. And, the fundraising we do and the speeches I've given and all of that, I think it'd be really hypocritical of me to say advocate for yourself and then to not advocate for myself. And I just thought, it doesn't feel right. I don't feel right. And I've had lumps in my breast before, which have been benign, fibroadenomas. I can never say this word, fibroadenomas, and nothing to worry about, but it felt different. And I think that's the key, is knowing what your normal is, because those lumps are still there. They've never become cancerous. There's no problem with them. But then this development was so alarming because of how hard the lump was.
Right.
And I mean, it got to a point where I didn't even have to go looking for it. When my breast filled with milk, you could just see it.
You could see the lump.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I just thought, it's just in my nature to double check, triple check. And I thought, how can I not do it with this? So I just went and I got a second ultrasound. Right. And they again said that they thought I was fine, but they thought what they could see was small, maybe blockages due to milk ducts being blocked, and to massage the breast as I'm breastfeeding and mainly feed on the left side, which is where I was feeling the lump, but they weren't concerned. So I at that point was like, okay, they can't both be wrong, and maybe that is the case, and I've never had a baby before, so I've never breastfed before, and I know that there are a lot of changes within the breast when it comes to when you just had a baby, which is what most mums would assume anyway. So I had just booked a job, Death in Paradise, so I flew out to Guadeloupe with my mum and my son. Right. And I remember being on set day 4 and finding another lump.
So that's 3 lumps.
Two lumps. So literally within probably about half an inch away from the first one, but very definitely 2 separate lumps. Right. And I just was like, really?
Wow.
And then that was it for me. I I was kind of like a woman on a mission. There was no way I could let this go, because even if this is something that's just to do with the breastfeeding, surely this is something that I would know about then.
Yeah, because it's very weird, because lumps just don't appear like overnight.
Mm-mm.
You know, breast cancer, as we've heard on other episodes of the podcast, takes years to build and develop and to present. So to have another lump, did they miss something?
Honestly, it's still a question that I ask myself now. Like, I don't understand how that happened. I do think it's to do with, obviously they couldn't do a mammogram because I was breastfeeding, and you can't do that whilst your breasts are full with milk. So which is why initially with that second ultrasound, they said to me, keep breastfeeding until your son is 1, and then wait a month, let the milk dry up, come back, we'll do a mammogram to be sure. And I was like...
So that's a really, really important point, because I call it squashing, because, you know, when you go for a mammogram, they basically squash your boobs. It's not painful squash, it's just uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
So when you're breastfeeding, they can't do that because
your breasts are full of milk, and it's so that there's no clarity on the image. There's just loads of milk doing its thing,
and they wouldn't be able to, and that would probably not be good for the milk either. To be
it's more the what they see. It wouldn't be clear enough for them to determine what it is. Exactly. So they said to me, wait until your son is 1, so that would have been another 5 months, and then wait another month so the milk can dry up. So in total, they wanted me to wait 6 months to go back for a mammogram for them to be certain. And I was just in my mind,
all in one breast,
all in the left,
right?
All in the left, nothing in the right.
Mine was the left breast too.
Yeah. And I think about it all the time that should have really been the point, the normal point, to have gone, okay, fair enough. That you would do, and anybody would do, because a second opinion is, you know, sometimes they say, you know, just go for a second opinion if you're unsure. But me finding, I genuinely feel it saved me. I feel like Theo and breastfeeding and being body aware as well, which I think is in part due to the sickle cell. I have to be constantly aware of little changes in my body, because there's so many implications of having the condition. That when I found that, I remember I had to take myself away off set, just like kind of just have a minute and just like to rattle my head.
You found it on set?
On set. Just like, because we're waiting to go on to set. We're all in costume, ready, mic'd up and everything. And I was like, hang on, that's not, and I'm like this, and I was like, can I just have a minute? And I went off and felt, and properly felt, and I'm like, that's a separate lump.
Oh my goodness.
And I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do with myself, and I just remember thinking, right, you're here with your son and your mum, you've got a job to do, you can do nothing right now about this. Get the job done, get home, get it checked. So I just had to switch it off, and finished and got back, and we flew back to Manchester to visit my partner's mum. And I remember sitting there and seeing my partner and my son and his mum, and I just, in my mind, like, what will he do if he loses us both?
Wow.
And I know that, I don't know, it sounds dramatic, because there was no way of knowing that was going to happen, but it was a reality I had to understand could be.
Of course.
So
when you think you've got cancer, you think about dying.
Yeah.
It's just the next step.
It happens to so many people. Why not me? Why would I be special and be spared? And you know. So I told him that night, because I hadn't up until that point.
Wow.
And I said, I'm going to go see my GP. And I made an appointment the next day. I was seen 2 days later, because she's wonderful, my GP. And it's really hard to get appointments, as everybody knows, but because of my sickle cell, she's always been like, if there's anything, you let us know straight away. And I was seen 2 days later, and she got me into the system. It's called the One-Stop Breast Clinic.
Right.
If you're symptomatic, at the time, I don't know if it's still the same, but if you're symptomatic, you're seen within 2 weeks at the hospital, and they do everything that you could need doing. So I was there for 4.5 hours. And they did an ultrasound, a needle test in my armpit, which was done because when I got there and they examined me, they found a lump in my armpit.
Oh, wow.
I had a mammogram.
So that's your lymph nodes?
Yes.
Wow.
And I had a mammogram and a biopsy in both
So
lumps.
you had a mammogram?
That at that point.
So they did.
There was it's at this point, we're just going to do everything.
Right.
We're going to do everything. And I'd stopped breastfeeding as soon as when I got back from, when I found that second lump, when I was in Guadeloupe, I stopped breastfeeding as soon as we got back to my house.
Right.
And had expressed as much as I could and then just stopped. Because I was like, if this helps in any way for them to see what they need to see, I'll do it.
Right.
He's had 6 months. I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
Almost 7.
Yeah.
He's thriving, and if this is the difference between me living and dying, then I just have to stop. As much as I loved our moments like that, I just had to make that decision. And so it hadn't been a full month, but it was enough for them to see. Plus they did the biopsies, plus the needle test. And this was October 13th, 2021. The consultant called me back into the room and said, I'll be honest, I'm not happy with what I'm seeing, but we want to get everything sent off, so can you come back in a week and can you bring somebody with you? And that is always, like, I've heard that time and time again. And I just knew. I remember I was crying as they were doing the mammogram because there was just something.
Did it hurt?
Yeah, mammograms are not fun.
Yeah, I think when you've got something as well, like it hurts
it's
a little bit.
They're
I
not.
don't want to put people off.
Yeah,
I
was
want
just
to
going to
find
say,
the million missing mammograms.
No.
I want them to go for it.
Oh my God, please go. I can't stress enough that catching it as soon as you can is literally the best chance you've got of surviving.
Yeah.
And it's why, because we caught it so early. And I came back the next week and with my partner, and I remember I just knew, and I knew that he felt the complete opposite. He was convinced that it was going to be something just to do with the breastfeeding, because that's what it often is. And also I think hoped that it was nothing. And I just remember sitting next to him, and she came in the room, and I could tell by her face as well. I'm always like watching people's reactions constantly, and I could tell. And she came in, and she was kind of talking about other things, and she couldn't really look me in the eye, and she was like, "Okay, so I'm not going to beat around the bush."
Who did you go in with?
Just Johnny, my partner.
Okay.
And we're holding hands, and she's like, "Okay, I'm not going to beat around the bush." And I felt him just tense next to me because he was really not expecting it, especially with what was going on with his mum, and he'd lost his auntie the year before to breast cancer, and it was just like, come on. And then we discussed my options from that point.
Right. So, if you hadn't been your own advocate, and that's a serious advocacy, I mean, you're talking about
three
people telling you not to worry, and you felt, no, something's not right. I mean, that is serious. That is serious advocacy in regards to everybody listening. As you said, know your body.
Absolutely.
Know what's right for you. Know if something feels off. Look at your boobs.
Yes.
In the mirror. Know what it looks like.
Because I think that's what it is as well. I've spoken to, so many people, but the common thing that comes back is either they don't know how to check, or if they do, they don't really know what they're looking for. Yeah. And I said, ultimately, if you, and also it's the frequency, because that's like a big thing for me, is that people are, if they are checking, they're checking every day in the shower, and they feel really great about the fact that they're checking every day in the shower. But if I don't see you for a month, then I notice that your hair's grown. Whereas if I see you every day, I'm not really noticing that growth. And that's basically what it is. So it needs to be once a month, and it needs to not be when you're on your period if you're still having periods. It needs to be, say, at the end, at a week after or something, and not in your cycle on when you're on your period. And then if you find whatever your normal is, you could have 3 lumps in one breast and have had them for years, had them checked, there's nothing to worry about, which is the case for me. I had 2 on the right. But as soon as you feel something that is different, you know that's not your normal, and you just have to go straight in. And the thing is, it's been amazing being so open about everything that's happened. I've had so many people contact me and saying that they've checked and they've found things and this and this, which is amazing. But what is also really, really lovely is I've had people tell me that they've checked a lump that has been making them insane with worry for so long, and it's turned out to be nothing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And so then
it's
the stress is gone.
It's better to know.
Exactly. So it's not always going to hear bad news. It's going to take control of your life and
That's
of your
right.
health, and it's being body aware, not just breast aware. It's in general, and it's
Did you
meant
always
to.
love your body?
I had moments. I guess I had my insecurities. I think, like everybody. I've always been very in touch with my body, as in I look at myself a lot in the mirror naked to just make sure everything's still there.
Where you left it yesterday.
Yes, is that right? Yep, okay. So I've never been afraid. I've got friends who are like, oh God, never look at myself in the mirror naked.
Yeah.
Oh God, no,
Yeah. That's right,
and it tends to be the older ladies that I speak to that feel that way, actually. Like in their 70s, and I understand it. I completely understand it. But at the same time, I never ever talk about this, but I was bullied very, very badly in school, and so and in part it was to do with how I looked as well, and so.
Because what? Because you're stunning. So
Oh, thank you.
What were
It
they?
wasn't how I felt for a very long time, and I was the only
Is it your
black
colour?
child in my school, in my area.
Oh.
It was mainly primary school, but it was physical and verbal and emotional, all of that. And so I learnt to hate the skin that I was in, and I don't just mean that in the colour, I mean just like it being in my skin, being me was really not my favourite thing for a very long time, and I that actually continued until 2014.
Wow.
Yeah.
That you didn't like the skin
That I wasn't
in.
comfortable in my own skin, and I'm talking in both aspects,
Yeah.
as a woman and also as a black woman.
It took you until, so having been bullied as a little girl because you were different, because you were black in your school.
Yes.
It took you till you were 32, 33
Yeah.
before you finally felt comfortable in your own skin. What made that switch?
I started a job at a place in London, and it was just so inclusive and incredibly liberating and very freeing being up on that stage. And I still dip in every now and again. It's just a family there, and I love them for it, and I'm incredibly grateful because it just changed me as a person and changed the way I operated in this world and therefore with other people.
How did it change?
I guess it's realising your worth and your importance and your purpose, and I think feeling represented and included in everything, regardless of how I felt before. Like, I remember when I was really, really young, I remember all the time, actually, and I look back and I weep for the little girl that I was, but I'm not that girl anymore, and I know I'm living her wildest dreams, which makes me so proud in that sense. And but she used to sit on her own a lot, a lot, and that just makes me, when I see people, I'm just very aware when I see somebody feeling lonely. I hate it, and I just want to do whatever I can to help them.
So that is
feel
now your
needed.
purpose.
Yeah.
You reminded me of a section of my book, a chapter
yeah.
in my book, A Purposeful Life. It's like finding your purpose, and if that purpose is to make somebody feel less lonely, then that's a really valuable and important purpose. So how did you feel when you knew you had to have an operation and your body was going to change? Because you had a double mastectomy, didn't you?
I did. I actually made the decision because they were saying they could do what they thought they needed to do with a lumpectomy.
Right.
But I actually made the decision to have the double mastectomy as I said before, I was crying as I was doing the mammogram, and in my mind I was like, if this comes back the way I think it's going to come back, I don't care to what extent it is, I want everything gone because I don't want to have to worry. My son is 2, and in fact at the time my son wasn't even 1 yet, and I just thought, I can't live with that weight on my shoulders and that worry, and I knew that it would be complicated with the sickle cell. Whatever the surgery,
huge surgery.
Yeah.
Did you have reconstruction or did you have implants?
Yeah, they reconstructed straight away. Silicone implants. They also did a lymph node clearance, so they took 7 lymph nodes from my armpit.
Okay. They took 8 from mine. I'm thinking, what do these lymph nodes look like?
Yeah. I want to see. Show me. I want to see what you took out.
What was that? But,
you think you have 20 something. Don't quote me on that.
Back in the day, as my mum told me, they just took out all the lymph nodes. Right. But now I think as medicine's moved on, they just take bits of it.
I think my mum had pretty much all of hers taken on that side too, and it can cause all kinds of problems.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, they did reconstruction straight away, which I'm so grateful for, because incidentally, if I'd gone for the lumpectomy, because I was diagnosed with DCIS, which is ductal carcinoma in situ, which is where there are cancerous cells within the milk ducts. If I'd had the lumpectomy, I would have had to go back in for a mastectomy, because when they tested the tissue later, they found microinvasion in the breast tissue and micrometastases in the lymph nodes, which is why I'm now on the medication I'm on, which is tamoxifen, 1 tablet a day, and Gocera, 5 years.
How's your tamoxifen symptoms treating you,
honestly,
Victoria?
It's like my body isn't my own. It's like the aches. It's the aches more than anything. I'm like, what? I feel like when you get DOMS after you've worked out and a couple of days later you're aching, it's like that, but every day. And I'm like, if I'd worked out and my body looked like it, I'd be really happy. But that's not the case.
I hear you and I feel your pain.
Oh gosh. And then the other drug is is Goserelin, which also the other name is Zoladex, which is an injection every 28 days, again for 5 years. Wow. It's kind of a 2-pronged attack. They sent my tissue off to the States because apparently DCIS isn't supposed to become invasive. And so it's a very rare form. It makes up 1% of all types of breast cancer. Oh. So it's called DCIS with microinvasion. Oh. And it's not supposed to come out of that concentrated area, but it did. And so they sent my tissue off to the States, which was just more waiting. And then and when it came back, they said it's good news and bad news. Bad news because it's come back a little bit, it's like inconclusive. We aren't sure exactly whether chemo's the best way to go. But it's good news because the sample was so small, the microinvasion is so small that's why it's inconclusive, which is kind of like, okay. But because it got to my lymph nodes, they weren't sure whether any cells had gotten around the rest of my body. So to mop that up, that's why I'm on these drugs now. Right. The only thing.
Again, it's the early catching of.
Absolutely.
For those people listening, like the lymph nodes basically.
They're the gateway to the body.
They pump liquid around your body. Wow. And
catching it at that point, because it can get to another part of your body, and it's a very different outcome. And actually, my diagnosis was October 13th at DCIS, and by the time the surgery came around, which was December 17th, so 8 weeks later, it had progressed because that's when the
Wow.
So imagine if I'd waited those.
So imagine
6 months.
if was it the second
who had told me to wait.
Said wait for 6 months.
Then I could have been
That would have
stage
spread
3,
around
stage
your
4,
body.
maybe worse. I don't know, but I try not to even think about that and focus on that.
Because this is the importance of catching it early.
Getting it checked. And I know nobody, I mean, especially during COVID, it was COVID at the time, nobody wants to hear bad news.
No.
But it's better to hear bad news and do something about it than to have no idea, and then they finally catch something that is stage 3, stage 4, there's nothing we can do, I'm so sorry, you have a few months to live. That's
literally the difference that it makes.
Absolutely, 100%.
And you're doing a lot of work now, aren't you, advocating for others?
Yes.
And is it a documentary that you're doing?
Yes, so we're filming a breast cancer documentary. It's global, so we're in the States and Africa and the UK. It's called The Naked Truth. And we're looking at a lot of things. We're speaking to research teams, scientists, doctors, survivors, their families. We're looking at different types of treatment, the genetic side of things, what we're putting on our bodies, what we're putting in our bodies. All of it. It's very informative.
Stuff with, like, especially sort of black women and hair relaxers, for instance.
Literally.
It is.
It's causing cancer. And you know, there is a massive difference between the prognosis for a black woman developing breast cancer and a white woman developing breast cancer, and it's alarming how big that gap is, and also in certain countries the type of treatment and how seriously they're taken. It focuses on African women and the diaspora, but it's for everybody. Because anybody and everybody can learn from this. The reason why I'm focusing on that is because all the work that I have been doing up until this point has been here and in the UK, and I feel like at least I can talk about this educatedly because that's where my family are from.
Yeah, and also if you get it right, because when I think my breast cancer, I said they can, use whatever's left to investigate, experiment.
Right.
Find out treatments. The fact that you're able to do that, but if it works for black women, it'll work for all women.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if we streamline the service, if we have a better service, if we understand breast cancer more, it will work for everybody. So,
and men too. There's so many men that don't even. There are women that don't realise men can get breast cancer. Never mind men not knowing. And it's like it's 1 in 1,000. Obviously. Statistics change every now and again, but at the moment it's 1 in 1,000 men, and it might seem like not a lot, but if you think like a football stadium or Wembley or something, and it absolutely is.
Absolutely.
I know.
My cousin died. A male cousin died of breast cancer.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
I'm
it was
so sorry.
such a shock, and his wife found the lump, and said you need to get that looked at, and he went and had it removed, and then it came back.
I'm so sorry.
It was, such a shock. So men get breast cancer too,
and it's they're less likely to check, and they're
check.
definitely
and
less likely to
go
to
the doctors. Ain't that the truth?
Oh gosh. But we're trying. We're working still very hard to. It's not just about raising awareness. It's very informative, I think, with the documentary that we're working on, and trying to also dispel this taboo that there is about talking about it in certain cultures. Not even certain cultures. I think generations before, I've got so many of my friends in the UK have talked about the fact that their aunties or grandmas or whatever, they would never. They'd be like, she's just a bit sick. Like they whisper, she's got a bit sick. And it's like, oh my gosh, not talking like literally. The more we talk, the longer we live. It's literally the strap line for everything I'm doing.
That's really great. I like
true.
that.
The more we talk, the longer we live. Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely. How can we
I'm
not?
going to nick that.
You heard it here
That's
first.
good, yeah.
But yeah, because because we're just constantly passing on information
That's
and
right.
knowledge, and
That's
as we
right.
know, knowledge is power, and we can't possibly not inform the future generations,
right.
because
That's right.
they're who we're passing everything
Yeah.
on to, and we're hoping to carry the torch forward, and
That's right.
and also we're trying to instill hope. So there's life with and after cancer.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the death sentence that we all feared when,
We
however
used
many
to
years ago.
back in
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Late 90s.
And so within the documentary, obviously, we're discussing my journey, but also showing the positives as well. So my performance and all of that kind of stuff, and when I'm doing sports.
What music got you through? Because for me, music plays a big role in my life. Like, in my book, I've got a playlist at the back of my book, which has got like all of these tunes, lots of sort of old tunes in there. But music played a huge role in also just settling my mind. You know, you're going through breast cancer, you're going through recovery from your operation. I mean, I started writing a book. What did you do?
I wrote music. Because, as I said, it was COVID and it was crazy times, and because I'm a creative,
that's your
I
job.
needed that outlet. So I was writing music, and it was incredibly cathartic. It was like my form of therapy, which I think it always has been. I've been singing since I was 4, and as I said, it was my friend when I was younger. But I mean, artist-wise, vocally, I've never been more moved than when I play Whitney. There's just something quite superhuman with the way she sings. But as far as the strength,
you played Whitney.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
So you just play
my
it,
favorite album
I
is
feel
"And Your
like-
Baby Tonight."
I feel like you could have played Whitney. Like, I think Whitney was great in the movie, but I feel like you could have also played Whitney.
Thank you. I mean, I would have been honoured. I would have been honoured. Her and Tina Turner have been my best friends when it comes to music, and the grit and determination, the steeliness, the perseverance, the tenacity that Tina had to get through everything she did is incredibly inspiring. But also, it's like, I don't know, I feel like there isn't a part of me that, even though it's different experience, there isn't a part of me that doesn't identify and that doesn't resonate with me in a way, because regardless of what that adversity is, regardless of what the enemy is, you just got to keep pushing and keep going. And then the fact that she didn't just push through and survive, she thrived and smashed it and became, what she became.
All the odds.
Exactly that. We were homeless at one point, and so to be now where I am and where we are as a family, I'm just so grateful and
That's amazing.
and really proud of us as a family.
We're proud of you. So to conclude, to end this podcast, you have to sing. You have to sing a song.
Oh gosh.
You have to sing a song.
Okay. Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Your dad is rich and your mama's good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry.
Oh my God, you've got such a beautiful voice.
Thank you.
I remember seeing you on some show on TV.
Celebrity X Factor.
I was like, oh my God, with a voice like that, why hasn't she got albums? And you know what I mean? It was just crazy. So, thank you.
We're working on it.
Good. I'm pleased. Let me know. I'll be in the front row.
Thank you.
But Victoria, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story with me, and also just your amazing tenacity and the way that you've advocated for yourself but others too. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.